They thought she was just another victim, but they didn't see the shadows move. They didn't hear the low growl in the dark, and the outlaws had no idea the dog watching them was trained to take down enemies in war zones. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a mission, and failure, not an option. This is the story of Luna, a calm, quiet golden shepherd who once served in war zones, sniffing out danger and saving lives. But when she retired, all she wanted was peace, and she found it, alongside her owner Emily, in a small, quiet town with not much going on. Until one night, everything changed. A group of outlaws broke into their home, thinking it'd be a simple job. They didn't just take valuables, they took Emily. But Luna was still there, watching, waiting, and remembering everything she'd ever been trained to do. Emily didn't ask for much in life. She had no interest in the fast pace of cities or the noise of crowds. Her heart belonged to the quiet rhythm of the forest, the sound of leaves crunching under her boots, and the crisp morning air brushing against her cheeks. Her small home sat on the edge of Pinebrook, a sleepy little town where the loudest sound at night was usually a distant owl or the occasional coyote. She had been a wildlife photographer for almost a decade. Her walls were lined with framed shots of deer peeking through morning fog, eagles soaring across golden skies, and foxes frozen mid-step in a fresh blanket of snow. But none of them compared to the framed photo by her nightstand, a picture of her and Luna on the day they first met. Luna wasn't just any dog. She was a Belgian Malinois, lean and powerful, with sharp amber eyes and a presence that made you pause. Emily had adopted her 3 years ago through a veteran program after Luna had finished her military service overseas. When Emily first brought her home, she had no idea what Luna had been through, how many missions she'd been on, how many lives she might have saved. All she knew was that this dog looked tired and somehow so human in her gaze, like she'd seen too much, but still held on to a quiet strength. The first few months were slow. Luna would pace the hallway at night, jump at sudden noises, and sit staring at the front door for hours. Emily was patient. She gave her space, spoke softly, and over time, Luna began to trust her. Eventually, that trust turned into something deeper, a bond neither of them had expected. They became inseparable. Every morning, they walked the same trail through the woods, rain or shine, Emily with her camera slung over her shoulder, Luna trotting a few steps ahead, ears perked, eyes scanning the trees. Luna never barked at squirrels, never chased after birds. She moved with quiet precision, like she was still on patrol. Emily often joked with her neighbors that Luna was retired, but still on duty. Pinebrook was the kind of place where nothing ever really happened. The local diner still used a jukebox. The sheriff's department had one deputy. Most folks left their doors unlocked, and neighbors brought you soup when you were sick. It was safe, predictable. Emily had chosen this town for that very reason. After spending so many years capturing life in the wild, she wanted peace. But peace never lasts forever. Over the last few weeks, there had been rumors, nothing concrete, whispers around the diner, a couple of break-ins, mostly on the outskirts of town. One woman said her backyard shed had been ransacked. Another claimed her dog had gone missing. The sheriff chalked it up to mischievous teenagers, maybe kids from the next town over looking for trouble. Emily wasn't too concerned, but Luna was. She started acting different, more on edge, staring out the window longer than usual, sleeping by the front door instead of at Emily's bedside. One night, Luna growled low under her breath and refused to come to bed until Emily checked all the locks, something they had never done before. Still, Emily brushed it off. "You're just being overprotective," she whispered to Luna one night, scratching behind her ears. "There's nothing out there." She would soon regret those words. One Thursday night, just after 9:45 p.m., Emily was in the kitchen making tea. She had just finished editing a batch of forest photos and was winding down. Luna lay in the hallway, calm but watchful, her eyes flicking toward the front door now and then. The TV played softly in the background, casting flickers of light across the hardwood floor. Emily's phone was charging in the bedroom. Her curtains were drawn. Everything felt normal, until the knock. It wasn't loud, just firm. 3 solid taps. Emily froze, the kettle still in her hand. Who could be knocking at this hour? She glanced at the clock. 9:52 p.m. Luna stood up slowly. Her ears rose. Her body stiffened. Emily put the kettle down and moved cautiously toward the front window, trying to peer through the side of the curtain without being seen. Nothing. The porch was empty. Then another knock. This one harder, faster. Luna's low growl echoed through the hallway. Emily's heart began to race. She wasn't expecting anyone. She hadn't ordered anything. Her nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile down the road. She stepped closer to the door, debating whether to call out or stay silent. Then, everything happened at once. A loud crash. The wood around the lock splintered. The door burst open. 3 men charged in, faces covered in black ski masks, dressed in dark clothes from head to toe. One of them lunged at Emily, grabbing her arm with such force she nearly fell. She screamed, but only for a second before a gloved hand clamped over her mouth. Luna launched forward, teeth bared, a deep, guttural snarl shaking the walls. She leapt straight at the man holding Emily, claws scraping the hardwood, but one of the others was ready. He pulled something from his coat and sprayed it directly into Luna's face. Pepper spray. Luna yelped, a sound that pierced Emily's soul, stumbling back as her eyes burned, her nose flaring wildly. She crashed into a chair and whimpered, trying to shake it off, but it was too much, too fast. Emily fought. She kicked, bit the man's hand, screamed again, but the third attacker punched her hard in the side, winding her. They dragged her across the floor, Luna still blinking through the pain, struggling to get up. They yanked the front door wide open. One of them ran out to start the van. The others pulled Emily down the porch steps, her bare feet scraping against the wood. The last thing she saw before being shoved into the back of the van was Luna, drenched in tears, fighting to stand. Then the doors slammed shut, and the night swallowed everything. The van roared down the gravel path, tires kicking up clouds of dust as it disappeared into the dark woods outside of Pinebrook. No one saw it, no one heard it. It was like Emily had been swallowed whole by the night. Back at the house, Luna finally staggered to her feet. Her legs were unsteady, her eyes burned like fire, her breathing came in short, rapid bursts. But there was one thing louder than the pain, the memory of Emily's scream. That sound cut through her instincts like a hot knife through butter. Luna had been trained for chaos, for bombs and bullets, for screams louder than this one. And while she had long since traded combat for forest walks and quiet mornings, her mind had never fully stopped scanning for threats. That side of her, the soldier, had been sleeping. Now it was wide awake. She limped to the front door, sniffing wildly, trying to find her bearings. The pepper spray still burned, but her brain worked fast. She could still smell them. 3 different scents, one of them soaked in cheap cologne, the other reeking of stale cigarettes. The third was quieter, like motor oil and rust. She made her way outside, paws touching the front porch where Emily had been dragged just moments ago. Blood, just a smear. A scrape from Emily's foot where she'd kicked against the wood. Luna sniffed it, then looked toward the road. Her ears twitched. The van, it was still close. She could hear the faint echo of tires over the loose gravel. That was all she needed. She darted into the trees. Meanwhile, in the back of that speeding van, Emily was trying to stay calm. Her hands were tied, duct tape pressed against her mouth. Every time the van hit a bump, her head knocked against the cold metal floor. Her vision blurred, her thoughts scattered. But one name kept screaming inside her skull, Luna. Where is she? She wondered. Is she okay? Did they hurt her worse than I saw? She fought the tears. She had to stay awake. She had to remember details. The man driving never spoke. The other 2 sat beside her, one fiddling with a burner phone. The other sipping from a cheap energy drink. Like this was nothing more than another Tuesday night job. That's what chilled her the most, the ease, the calm, like they'd done this before. And they had. The group called themselves the Hollow Men. No one knew exactly how many there were, but local law enforcement suspected they were responsible for a string of small-town kidnappings, pet thefts, and burglaries across 3 states. Their MO was always the same: hit quiet towns where no one locked their doors, grab what they could, and vanish before anyone even noticed. But tonight, they'd made a mistake. They picked the wrong woman. More importantly, they didn't realize she wasn't alone. Back in the woods, Luna was running like her life depended on it. She cut through underbrush and ducked beneath low branches, the sting in her eyes beginning to fade. Her breathing steadied. Her legs moved faster. She followed the scent like a missile, tracking the van's path with terrifying precision. But this wasn't the desert. It wasn't an enemy outpost. This was home, and she wasn't hunting enemies for a uniformed handler anymore. She was hunting the people who took Emily, and that made all the difference. By the time the van reached its destination, a broken-down cabin in the hills about 20 miles out, Emily's lip was bleeding, and her wrists were rubbed raw from the ropes. The men dragged her out roughly, one of them laughing under his breath as if this were all a game. They shoved her into a small room, slammed the door, and locked it with a rusty padlock. No windows, no phone, just cold walls, and a flickering overhead bulb. The silence was deafening. until one of them said something that made her blood run colder than the night outside. "We'll hold her till tomorrow. Boss wants to ask her some questions." Then we disappear. Same as always. Boss, questions, disappear. Emily's heart thumped so hard she could feel it in her teeth. They hadn't taken her for money. They wanted something else. Outside, Luna had made it to the tree line, just beyond the cabin. She stopped, crouched low. Her breath was heavy, but quiet. Her eyes scanned the structure. Old, creaky, half covered in vines and moss. The faint glow of a porch light buzzed weakly near the front door. She stayed in the shadows, moving like a ghost. She counted the scents again. 3 men, 1 woman. Emily was here. She was close, and Luna wasn't leaving without her. Inside the cabin, Emily paced the tiny room like a trapped animal. Every sound from the other side of the door made her flinch. Footsteps, voices, the metallic clink of tools being moved, and something even worse, the low, muffled barking of dogs in the distance. They had other animals. Had they been stealing pets too? Suddenly, it all made sense. The missing cats, the vanished dogs, the quiet notices stapled to telephone poles across Pinebrook. They weren't random disappearances. These men had been testing the waters, practicing, seeing how much they could take before anyone noticed. But why? Emily closed her eyes and tried to remember every detail of their faces, their voices, anything that might help her survive. But the door hadn't opened in over an hour, and the only light in the room came from that single overhead bulb, flickering, as if even it didn't want to stay there. Meanwhile, outside, Luna moved like a ghost between the trees. Her training kicked and like a switch had been flipped. Scan, pause, advance. She was no longer the sleepy dog who trotted beside Emily during morning hikes. That version of her had vanished the moment the van's engine roared off into the night. This Luna was silent, focused, deadly. She crept around the perimeter of the cabin, ears perked, nose twitching. Her brain cataloged every scent, every shift in wind direction. She didn't bark, didn't whine. She was a predator in her element. One of the men stepped outside, the one with the cologne. He lit a cigarette and mumbled something about shifts and watch duty. Luna crouched low behind a log, watching. The man took a step forward, closer to the trees. He shouldn't have. In a blur, Luna sprang from the darkness, launching herself at the man with the force of a battering ram. Her jaws clamped down on his arm before he could scream. The cigarette flew from his mouth, landing in the grass. He fell hard, tried to kick, tried to grab her fur, but Luna twisted and pinned him, snarling low and deep, not barking, never barking. This wasn't noise. This was war. She didn't kill him. That wasn't her mission, but she made sure he wouldn't be a problem anytime soon. When she let go, the man was unconscious, his own jacket tangled beneath him, blood running down his arm. She vanished back into the trees before the others even noticed. 1 down, 2 to go. Back inside, Emily had slumped to the floor. She was trying not to cry, not from fear, but from frustration, from helplessness. She had always believed in self-reliance, that she could handle whatever life threw at her, but nothing had prepared her for this. She pressed her ear to the floor, hoping, desperately, to hear something, anything, a siren, a search party, even a raccoon bumping into trash would have been welcome at that point. Instead, silence, until a noise scratched at the edge of her hearing. It was faint, but it was real. Pause, quiet, purposeful. She froze. Luna, it couldn't be, could it? Was she just imagining it? No, that was real. That had to be real. Luna was here, outside. Luna had already made her way to the back of the cabin. She circled the place again, double-checking for traps, sounds, or signs of activity. One of the other men, Cigarette Guy's partner, came outside to check on him. The scream he let out when he saw his buddy lying in the grass was loud, too loud. Luna used it as cover. She leapt through the shadows, finding the broken basement window at the back of the house. The opening was small, but she squeezed through, landing softly on the concrete floor below. It was dark, dusty, smelled like mold and old wood. But above her, Emily, she knew it, and now it was time to bring her back. The commotion outside had stirred the last man, the quiet one. He slammed open the cabin door and shouted at his partner, who was now trying to drag the unconscious guy inside. What the hell happened? I don't know, man. Something hit him, like a wild animal, or did you see it? No, I just heard growling, like something big. Then he was on the ground. The quiet one narrowed his eyes. He didn't believe it was an animal, not a random one anyway. And that was when he noticed the prints. Dog prints. Fresh. Big. Where's the dog? He asked, eyes darting to the tree lane. She's probably gone. We sprayed her, remember? No, the quiet one said, his voice sharp. That wasn't just any dog. And he was right, because at that very moment, down in the basement, Luna found the staircase. She moved up step by step, careful not to creak the old wood. She could smell Emily now. Her scent cut through everything else like a beacon. She was close, just behind one of those doors. But Luna also knew something else. The men were alert now. One of them was armed. She could smell gun oil, metal. Her instincts told her to wait, to listen, to strike only when the moment was right. So she did. Upstairs, the quiet man paced back and forth, while his nervous partner tried to call someone on the burner phone. But there was no signal this deep into the woods. The trees blocked everything. No service, no backup, and no escape if things went wrong. The door to the room where Emily was being held rattled slightly. They froze. Silence. Then again rattle. The nervous guy stepped forward. Think she's trying to escape? No, the quiet one said, already raising his weapon. Something's wrong. But before he could turn the knob, he heard it. A low growl. Not behind the door. Under it. His eyes widened. Back away, he hissed. Too late. The door flew open. And there she was. Not Emily. Luna. She was already midair before the quiet one could raise his weapon. Her body collided with his chest like a missile. The gun went off, but the bullet tore into the ceiling as both of them slammed onto the wooden floor. The second man screamed, stumbled back, and dropped the burner phone. He scrambled to pick it up, fumbling over his words as he shouted, "It's the dog. She's in here." But no one was on the other end of the line. They were on their own. The quiet man wrestled with Luna, but it was useless. She wasn't fighting like a wild dog. She was moving like a soldier, targeted, trained, terrifying. She went for pressure points, elbows, wrists, neck. The way she moved would have left even seasoned fighters in awe. Meanwhile, Emily, still locked in the room, heard the chaos erupt just outside her door. Screams, a gunshot, and then silence again. Only this time, the silence felt different. It didn't feel hopeless. It felt like a promise, like something was coming for her. Back in the hallway, Luna stepped off the quiet man's chest. He wasn't getting back up. His eyes were wide open, his breath shallow and short. He clutched his arm, where a tendon had been ripped open. The second man had locked himself inside the kitchen and was screaming into a walkie-talkie. His words scrambled by fear. He barked orders at no one, his hands trembling so hard the device slipped out of his grip and clattered across the tile floor. Luna didn't follow him, not yet. She turned toward Emily's door. One sniff confirmed it. She was in there. Luna let out a soft whine, then a sharp bark. Inside, Emily jerked up from the floor. "Luna!" she shouted. Another bark, then scratching. Emily looked around. The door didn't have a lock on the inside. There was no keyhole, no way out unless someone opened it from the other side. But Luna was already on it. She threw herself against the wood once, twice. On the third hit, the lock gave way with a snap. The door swung open, and Emily saw her best friend, covered in dirt, a streak of blood on her side, but alive, and in full combat mode. "Luna!" Emily dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around the dog. She buried her face in her fur, tears breaking loose. "You found me. You actually found me." Luna licked her face, her tail wagging for the first time in hours. But the moment didn't last long, because they weren't safe yet. Emily stood up, adrenaline flooding her system. "We need to get out of here," she whispered. Luna was already at the door, peeking around the corner. Emily stepped over the unconscious body of one of the kidnappers, eyes wide. "You did that." Luna didn't respond, but her eyes stayed fixed on the kitchen, where the last man was waiting. The kitchen door creaked open. A gun poked out first, then a face. The last man, barely older than a college kid. His hands were shaking. He didn't look like a hardened criminal anymore. He looked like a scared kid who had just realized this job wasn't worth it. He locked eyes with Emily, and then he saw Luna, and he froze. "No way," he muttered. Emily didn't move, but Luna did. She growled, a sound so deep it vibrated through the floor. The man slowly lowered the gun. "I didn't sign up for this," he said. "They told me this would be easy. Just grab and go. I swear I didn't mean to hurt you." Emily stepped forward, her voice cold now. "You dragged me out of my home, tied me up, threw me in a van, and you sprayed my dog in the face." He didn't respond. He just backed away, palms up. "I'll leave," he said. "You'll never see me again." Luna didn't move. She waited for Emily, and Emily gave the command. Just one word. "Go." Luna chased him out the back door, not to hurt him, just to make sure he ran, and he did, into the woods, screaming like a child. Back inside, Emily collapsed into a chair. The nightmare was over, but her hands were still shaking. She looked at Luna, who sat calmly beside her, like she hadn't just taken down a group of trained criminals by herself. "You're not just my dog," Emily whispered. "You're my guardian angel." Luna placed her head in Emily's lap, eyes soft. They sat like that for a long time, until the sound of sirens finally broke the silence. Emily had found an old phone in the back room. The battery was dead at first, but Luna had knocked it off the shelf during the fight, and it sparked to life when Emily plugged it in. Now, officers poured into the cabin. Paramedics, search dogs, news reporters would soon follow. But none of that mattered, because Emily was safe. And Luna was still by her side. Luna tore through the woods like a phantom of war. Every muscle in her body moved with precision. No hesitation, no fear, just instinct. Leaves scattered beneath her paws. Branches brushed past her flank, but she didn't slow down. Her nose was locked in on the scent trail. Familiar, terrifying. Emily's perfume, the sharp sting of pepper spray, the greasy, metallic smell of the van, and the sour tang of fear, human fear. Her heart beat steady, focused, controlled. She was no longer in the quiet town Emily called home. She was back in a war zone, back when gunfire cracked overhead and danger hid in every shadow. She hadn't been called Luna back then. She was Kilo Tango 9, a name that had once echoed across battlefield radios, a name that carried weight, and tonight, it meant something again. Meanwhile, in the back of the van, Emily struggled to breathe. The ropes around her wrists cut into her skin. Her legs were bound too, and her mouth was taped. The men didn't speak much, but when they did, it was short, clipped. Not drunk teens, not amateurs. They were professionals. She could hear the hum of the engine, the tires crunching gravel. They weren't on the main road anymore, probably heading deeper into the woods, maybe toward the abandoned ranger station. That's where teenagers went to party sometimes. It had been empty for years. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Luna. Was she okay? She'd seen them spray something in her face. God, had they hurt her? Tears welled up in her eyes, but she forced herself to blink them away. Crying wouldn't help. Panicking wouldn't help. She needed to stay alert. She needed to find a way out, even if it felt impossible. The van finally stopped. Doors opened. Rough hands grabbed her arms and yanked her out. The cold air hit her like a slap. She stumbled, still blindfolded, and felt the ground change beneath her feet. Gravel, then leaves, then creaking wood. A building. They shoved her into a room, no bigger than a storage closet. The smell of mold and damp earth filled the air. One of the men grunted something about waiting for the call, and then the door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed her. Outside, Luna crept to the edge of a clearing. The scent trail had led her straight here, an old ranger station hidden behind thick trees and tall grass. She stayed low, ears up, every muscle taut. She saw the van, saw movement near the window. She circled wide, disappearing into the shadows. She had to get eyes on Emily. She had to assess the threat. There were at least 3 men, maybe more. She could hear them moving inside, laughing, arguing. She caught a word, ransom, and something worse. Get rid of her if it comes to it. Her hackles rose. Not tonight, not ever. Back inside the room, Emily leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. The ropes were tight, but not perfect. Her fingers were starting to go numb, but there was a bit of give. She wiggled, twisted, pressed against the floor. It hurt, it burned, but little by little, she felt the rope loosening. Then she heard it, a scratch, soft, barely audible. Then again, just outside the wall. Could it be? Her heart raced. "Luna," she whispered. Silence, then a low, familiar growl, quiet, like a whisper in the dark. Luna was here. She didn't know how, didn't know what she'd do, but Emily knew one thing. If Luna had found her, she had a chance. Luna moved like liquid shadow, nose to the wall. She could smell her. Emily was inside, alone, tied, scared. She circled again, this time to the back. A broken panel, a vent, a weak point. She could get in, but timing was everything. She had to create a distraction, something to draw them out. She scanned the ground. An old metal bucket lay by the shed. She picked it up in her jaws and flung it across the clearing. It crashed with a loud clatter. Instantly, 2 of the men stepped outside. What the hell was that? One snapped. Probably a raccoon. I'll check it out. They moved into the trees. Exactly what she needed. Luna slipped around the building, found the vent, and began digging. Fast, silent. She wedged her body through, scraping her fur, ignoring the pain. Then she was inside, dark, cold, but close. She crept forward until she reached the door. Emily was right on the other side. She could smell her. She let out a single, low bark. Emily gasped. Luna. The door was locked. Luna growled and threw her body against it. Once, twice. On the third try, it splintered. Emily winced as the door burst open, and there she was, Luna, tail high, teeth bared. A warrior returned. Emily sobbed with relief. Luna rushed to her, sniffing her hands, checking her body trembling with urgency. Emily leaned into her. "I'm okay. Just cut me loose." Luna looked around, saw a jagged metal shard from the broken vent. She dragged it to Emily, who gripped it with her bound hands and started sawing the rope. Outside, voices rose. They heard the crash. They were coming back. Luna stood between Emily and the door, ears up, body stiff. She didn't bark, didn't growl. She waited. She calculated. The moment the door opened, she lunged. One of the men screamed as she sank her teeth into his arm. He slammed into the wall, dropping his weapon. Emily, now partially free, grabbed the gun and aimed, hands shaking. The second man reached for something in his belt, but Luna was faster. She rammed into him with full force, knocking him over. Emily screamed, "Run!" They bolted, out into the woods. Luna stayed close, her eyes scanning, nose twitching. They couldn't use the road, had to stay hidden, had to outsmart them. Behind them, shouting echoed. Gunshots cracked through the air. Branches exploded around them, leaves flying. Emily ducked, heart in her throat. Luna turned, growling, eyes burning with fury. They had maybe a minute before the men closed in. Then Luna spotted it, a narrow ravine, fast water below. Not deep, but fast enough to sweep someone away. She nudged Emily toward it. Emily stared. "No, I can't." Luna barked once, sharp, commanding. Emily nodded. She trusted her. Together, they jumped. Cold water slammed into them. Emily gasped. Luna paddled hard, keeping her close, steering them toward the bank downstream. They emerged, soaked, coughing, but free for now. They hid in the underbrush. Emily shivered. Luna stood watch. The scent of danger still hung in the air, but fainter now. The men had lost them for the moment. Emily looked at Luna, touched her damp fur. "You saved me," she whispered. "You came for me." Luna didn't move. She was still listening, still calculating, still in soldier mode. And until Emily was safe, she wasn't turning it off. The sound of running water was deafening, but Emily could still hear it. The distant shouts of the men, the metallic click of weapons being reloaded, the cold crunch of boots on the damp ground. They hadn't stopped searching. Not yet, but Emily and Luna had a head start. The ravine had bought them a few precious minutes, but there was no telling how long it would take before the men figured out they had gone downstream. Luna's ears were constantly twitching. Her body was tense, alert. She knew what Emily didn't. Time was running out. Emily, still soaking wet and shivering from the cold, pressed herself against the base of a large tree. She tried to control her breathing, but her chest heaved with panic. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her, but the terror was undeniable. She had to move. She couldn't just sit here, waiting to be found. Luna was already ahead, sniffing the ground, her body low to the earth. Emily followed instinctively, despite the fog of fear clouding her thoughts. The woods were dense, full of twists and turns that could hide them, but they also made it easy to get lost. Emily had no idea where they were going anymore. Her head was spinning. Suddenly, Luna stopped, her tail going rigid. She was listening, waiting. Then, the unmistakable crunch of a footstep broke the silence. Emily froze, her heart hammered in her chest. She felt Luna's presence close to her, the warmth of her dog's body grounding her, but that did nothing to still the fear. Luna was waiting for the next move. Then she saw him. One of the men had come into view, just a few feet ahead, his head down, scanning the ground. Emily's hand instinctively went to her side, but there was nothing there. No weapon, nothing to protect herself, just the vast wilderness, which had turned from a sanctuary into a prison. The man's voice cut through the air like a blade. "We'll find them. It's only a matter of time." He was moving closer. Luna didn't wait. She launched herself forward with terrifying speed, a blur of muscle and fury. The man never saw it coming. His eyes widened in shock as Luna collided with his chest, knocking him back. The force of the impact sent him stumbling to the ground, and before he could even raise his hands to defend himself, Luna's teeth were sinking into his arm. Emily gasped, her heart in her throat. The man shouted in pain, flailing beneath Luna's weight. It happened too fast. Luna growled, holding him down. Emily, shaking with fear, scrambled to her feet, unsure of what to do next. She wanted to run, but Luna's warning growl reminded her this wasn't the time. Not yet. The other two men had heard the commotion. Emily's pulse spiked as she saw them burst through the trees, weapons raised. "Get off him," one of them yelled. rushing toward Luna. In the split second that followed, Emily's instincts kicked in. She dove for a large branch that lay nearby. Its thick, jagged edge perfect for a makeshift weapon. She swung it with all her might, connecting with the side of the man's head. The sound was sickening, a solid thud, followed by the man crumpling to the ground. He didn't move. For a moment, the world held still. Time slowed. Luna's grip tightened on the first man. Her jaws locked around his arm, as if she could rip him apart if she needed to. Her growl was guttural, a low, furious warning. The second man scrambled back, but Emily wasn't giving him the chance to recover. She moved forward, positioning herself between him and Luna, the adrenaline pumping through her veins like a life force. Luna's presence was everything now, an impenetrable force of nature. Emily's heart raced, but she was no longer terrified. The terror that had been gnawing at her heart faded. Luna was her protector. They were a team. The man stumbled backward, his eyes flicking between Emily and Luna, his breath ragged. He raised his weapon, but there was something in his eyes now. A hesitation, fear, and then, just like that, it was over. Luna lunged again, her body a blur, her jaws snapping shut around the man's wrist. The weapon fell from his hand, hitting the ground with a hollow clatter. Emily saw the terror in his eyes before he hit the dirt. He was too slow, too unsure. Luna had won. The silence that followed was deafening. The world felt frozen for a heartbeat. The air smelled of earth, blood, and the faint scent of the cold, wet leaves. Emily stood there, breathing heavily, looking down at the man. He was unconscious now, his body still. But Luna wasn't finished. She wasn't slowing down. She was in control, a trained warrior who would not stop until the threat was gone. "Luna," Emily whispered, a sob escaping her throat. "We did it." But Luna's gaze was fixed on the forest, her ears twitching, her body coiled, ready to move again. She was still listening, still watching, still protecting. Emily knew that Luna wasn't finished. Not yet. Just as they thought it was over, the third man appeared, his silhouette looming in the trees. He had a rifle now, the cold steel gleaming in the faint moonlight. Emily's stomach dropped. Luna reacted immediately, her muscles tightening, her eyes narrowing. She was ready, but Emily, she wasn't. In that moment, something deep within her shifted. She wasn't just the victim anymore. She wasn't just hiding in the shadows, depending on Luna to protect her. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to let this man get away with it. He wasn't going to hurt her. Not again. "Luna," Emily whispered, her voice steady now, like the calm before a storm. Luna's ears flicked toward her. "Do it." The command was simple, clear, and Luna did. With a snarl, Luna charged. The man never had a chance to react. Luna's speed was terrifying, a blur of strength and fury. She darted forward, her body a perfect, lethal weapon, her jaws snapping around the man's leg. The rifle clattered to the ground as the man screamed, the shock of the attack, sending him reeling backward. But Luna wasn't done. She pulled him down, onto the ground, where her teeth locked around his arm, holding him there with an iron grip. Emily didn't hesitate. She ran to the man, grabbed the rifle, and turned it toward him, the cold steel in her hand a reminder that she wasn't helpless. The man's eyes widened in disbelief as he realized he was trapped by Luna and Emily, a bond stronger than anything he could have imagined. "You're done," Emily said, her voice calm, cold, "and you're not going anywhere." And just like that, the battle was over. Luna stood between Emily and the man, her chest heaving, her eyes alert, watching for any further threats. Emily, still shaking but with a fire in her eyes, dropped the rifle and knelt beside her dog. She could barely catch her breath, but the rush of relief flooded her. She was safe. She had won, but there was still something left, something unsaid. "You saved me," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "You really did." Luna nuzzled her, her tongue lapping at Emily's cheek, as if to say, "You don't have to thank me." Luna had done her duty, and now they were free. But that wasn't the end of it, not by a long shot. The sun had barely risen by the time Emily and Luna made their way back to the cabin. The air was cold, and the silence of the forest seemed almost unnatural after the chaos of the night. But for the first time in hours, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in a long while: peace. The moon was setting, its pale light lingering over the treetops as if reluctant to say goodbye to the world. Emily walked beside Luna, her steps slower now, more deliberate. Every creak of the branches, every rustle in the underbrush seemed to speak of the world returning to normal. Only for them, it would never be quite the same. They had survived, but more than that, they had prevailed. When they reached the cabin, Emily paused in front of the door, turning to face Luna. The dog, still alert, looked up at her, eyes soft but watchful, as if making sure her human was okay. The bond they shared was deeper than words. It was a connection born of trust, of years of companionship, and of countless moments where Luna had been more than just a pet. She had been Emily's protector, her friend, her savior. "Luna," Emily whispered, kneeling down to her level, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You're my hero." Luna responded with a gentle nudge of her nose against Emily's cheek, her tail wagging slightly in the soft glow of the early morning light. It was as though she was saying, "You're safe. That's all that matters." Inside, Emily made a cup of tea, her hand still trembling slightly as she poured the steaming liquid into her favorite mug. She sank into the armchair by the window, Luna curling up at her feet, ever watchful. There was a deep sense of relief settling over her. The fear that had once gripped her chest was slowly dissolving, replaced by a quiet sense of pride. She had faced something she never thought she would have to: violent men, a threat to her home, to her life, and she had fought back. With Luna by her side, they had faced the darkness together and come out the other side stronger. The police would come soon to gather evidence, to question her about what had happened. They would find the three men, still unconscious, the remnants of their failed assault scattered across the forest. But Emily wasn't concerned about that. She wasn't worried about what the future held, or how the town would change after the event. The town had always been peaceful, yes, but there was no telling how the ripple of fear would affect everyone in the coming weeks. What mattered now was the fact that Luna had kept her safe. That, and the undeniable truth: Emily could never repay the loyalty, the courage, and the love Luna had shown her. The bond they shared was something few people would ever understand. Luna wasn't just a retired military dog. She wasn't just a companion. She was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that, no matter how dark things may seem, there's always someone, something, out there watching over you. Luna, the brave protector, the dog who had risked her life to save Emily, was more than just a war hero. She was family. She was everything. "Thank you," Emily whispered again, as if the words could somehow do justice to the way she felt. "Thank you for everything." The dog's tail wagged once more, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond between them. But that was all Luna needed to say. She didn't need to speak. She had already said everything with her actions. Every protective growl, every moment of silent vigilance, every time she had stood by Emily's side, it spoke volumes. As the hours passed and the world outside began to wake up, Emily and Luna remained inside the cabin, wrapped in the comfort of the life they had built together. Emily could hear the chirping of birds outside, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze, the peaceful sounds of the world going on. She could almost pretend nothing had happened, that the night before hadn't torn through their peaceful existence. But she knew better. Nothing could ever be the same, but that was okay. They had each other, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily understood the true meaning of the word family. In a way, the Outlaws had done her a favor, if only by forcing Emily to realize just how far Luna would go to keep her safe. How much she meant to this dog, this warrior, this protector. Emily had never understood the full extent of Luna's abilities until now, but she knew that she would never take them for granted again. Luna's loyalty, her strength, and her heart were irreplaceable. There were no words that could fully express what Emily was feeling, but there was one thing she knew for sure. They were going to be okay. They would always be okay, as long as they were together. And as the sun finally broke through the clouds, casting warm rays across the horizon, Emily knew in her heart that she would never feel fear again, because with Luna by her side, she was unstoppable. If you loved this story of loyalty and courage, make sure to subscribe and never miss an emotional moment like this. And if you want to see more heartwarming animal tales, check out our next video.